Have you ever felt like you're endlessly searching for answers, divine signs, hidden truths, or the meaning behind life's mysteries, but they never come? What if the search itself is the obstacle? What if the secrets you've been chasing are already waiting for you, silently, patiently, in the spaces you've been taught to ignore? Tonight, your sleep, your dreams, your inner quiet are the portals. The ancients knew this. Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom, Sufi mystics, Tibetan yogis, they all understood that revelation isn't found by seeking harder, but by letting go, by aligning your vibration, and allowing the divine to find you. The answers you're looking for aren't out there. They're within, waiting for the right frequency, the right intention, the right moment to reach you. You have spent lifetimes searching through books, through teachers, through fleeting whispers of intuition, grasping for something that always seems just beyond the reach of your fingers. And yet, what if the truth has never been lost? What if it has been here all along, quietly waiting for you to stop the frantic chase, to lower the hands of restless effort, and simply let it enter? Across cultures and eras, those who were called wise understood the paradox. The path is not in the seeking, but in the stillness that allows the seeker to become the vessel. The Sufis, those mystics of the winding deserts and caravan cities, whispered of fana, annihilation of the self, where one becomes nothing so that the divine can move through everything. They did not teach their disciples to hunt for secrets, as though they were treasures hidden beneath the sand. Instead, they instructed them to empty themselves, to cultivate a silence where the unseen could speak and the unseen would be recognized. This is no mere metaphor. It is a law as old as the Egyptian pyramids themselves, a rhythm encoded into the human soul long before the earliest scrolls of Thoth were etched in emerald stone. Even in the West, the Hermeticists, those keepers of the as above, so below dictum, recognize this principle. Hermes Trismegistus, the alleged scribe of eternal wisdom, recorded in the emerald tablets that the seeker who tries to wrest knowledge through effort alone often misses the essence. The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding, he wrote, implying that the truths of the cosmos are not revealed to those who chase. They are offered to those whose hearts and minds are attuned, whose souls are prepared to receive rather than to capture. To understand this, one must consider the way nature itself operates. Rivers do not pull at the stones along their course. They flow, and the stones are shaped and moved by the current. The sun does not force the lotus to open its petals. It shines, and the lotus responds in its time. And so it is with divine secrets. The moment you stop pursuing them, the moment you release the grip of desperation, they begin to arrive with the subtlety of dawn spilling across the horizon. The human mind has been trained to believe that effort equals result, that grinding and striving are the measures of accomplishment. Schools, families, and societies teach this relentlessly. Work harder, they say. Do more. Achieve. Accumulate. And yet, every mystic, every oracle, every keeper of hidden wisdom across history would laugh at this principle in the quiet moments of their insight, for the deepest truths were never captured by effort. The Taoists, dwelling in the misty mountains along the Yangtze, spoke of Wu Wei, effortless action. This was not laziness, it was alignment. To act without forcing, to move without tension, to live in a harmony that allows the currents of life and consciousness to bring forth what is already present. The Tao, they said, cannot be caught. It can only be followed with gentleness and awareness. And so the paradox of spiritual attainment emerges. The more you release the obsession with control, the more the cosmos entrusts you with its secrets. Even the ancients of Egypt, whose civilizations rose along the fertile banks of the Nile, under the gaze of gods whose names echo across millennia, understood this principle. Thoth, the deity of wisdom, writing, and hidden knowledge, was depicted holding the ibis-headed pen, not in frantic pursuit of answers, but in quiet contemplation. He was the master of the invisible currents, the unseen forces that shape reality, the librarian of the universe, who knew that knowledge is not found through feverish seeking, but through resonance with the rhythms of the unseen. Initiates in the temples of Heliopolis were taught to prepare themselves not by reading more scrolls or memorizing more incantations, but by attuning their consciousness, by purifying the mind and body, by surrendering the compulsion to grasp, and instead becoming the silent receiver. Here lies the first key. Stop believing that wisdom must be acquired through hustle. Begin to see it as something that comes when you align, when you still the restless mind, when you allow your inner frequency to match the resonance of the divine. There is a common misconception in modern spiritual circles that searching is virtuous. The gurus and motivational speakers of the digital age, with their neatly packaged advice and hypnotic visuals, often encourage a form of relentless striving. Yet, if you trace the lineage of true wisdom from the Tibetan lamas perched on cragged Himalayan peaks to the desert hermits of Egypt, to the shamanic practitioners of the Americas, you notice a consistent thread. The seeker is asked to stop, to pause, to enter the liminal space between effort and surrender. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the dying are instructed to recognize the bardo, the intermediate state, where the soul is confronted with illusions that reflect its inner vibrations. The bardo is a mirror, showing that the landscapes we navigate, whether in life, in sleep, or in the inner worlds, respond not to our striving but to our alignment. The same principle applies in life before death. The inner landscapes we attempt to navigate for insight or divine knowledge respond to our openness, our coherence, our stillness. Consider the allegories of Plato's cave. Prisoners chained to walls perceive shadows and believe them to be the totality of reality. They chase the shadows, thinking the movement and struggle will bring understanding, yet it is only when a prisoner stops, when they release the tension of expectation, that a path opens to the sunlit reality beyond. The shadows on the wall were not the truth, but a reflection of it, and the truth itself is always patient, waiting for those willing to cease their frantic pursuit and allow their perception to deepen. Mystics of the Middle East spoke of the unveiling, the process of removing the layers of preconceived notions, fear, and egoic striving to reveal the hidden light that has always existed behind the curtain. And this is where your journey begins. By understanding that stopping is not failure, it is preparation. It is the necessary pause in which the secret begins to find you. The alchemists of the Renaissance also knew this. They did not simply mix metals and hope for gold. They observed, waited, and allowed transformations to occur over time, understanding that the secret of transmutation resides as much in the vessel as in the substance. They spoke of the philosopher's stone, not as a literal object to grasp, but as a state of consciousness that arises when the alchemist ceases the frantic chase and aligns with the rhythms of nature and spirit. Their experiments were long, tedious. Yet the true revelation was not in the formulas but in the patience, in the stillness, in the awareness that what was sought would arrive when the seeker was prepared. Here is another key. Divine secrets are not obtained through external accumulation. They emerge when your inner world resonates with their frequency, when your intention is pure, when your mind is quiet enough to hear the whisper. This principle echoes through the mystical practices of the East as well. In the yogic traditions, the aim of meditation is not to conjure knowledge, but to dissolve the barriers of the ego that block perception. The Upanishads declare that the self is already Brahman, that the ultimate reality is not somewhere to be reached, but a recognition of what always exists. Likewise, in Zen, the koan is not solved by logical reasoning. It is penetrated by letting go of striving altogether. The answer, if it can even be called that, arises when the seeker is fully present, when dualistic chasing has ceased. And what is the world we live in today if not a grand exercise in distraction and persistent striving? Our lives are a cacophony of external demands, notifications, and obligations, each urging us to act, to perform, to obtain. It is against this current that you must learn to float, to cultivate the inner space where divine secrets can emerge naturally. History teaches us that those who have been most attuned to the unseen did not chase it. Pythagoras, often remembered for his theorem, was also a mystic who spoke of the harmony of the spheres. He did not discover these harmonies by calculation alone, but by tuning himself to the music inherent in nature. Hildegard of Bingen, the medieval visionary, recorded visions that spanned theology, medicine, and cosmology. These visions were not a product of relentless seeking. They arose in the context of prayer, contemplation, and attunement to forces unseen yet palpably present. The mystics of the Kabbalah wrote of Ein Sof, the infinite, which reveals itself to those whose inner vessels are purified, whose yearning is sincere, and whose minds are patient. These patterns repeat: stillness, alignment, receptivity. Not effort, not grasping, not searching. In indigenous traditions across the globe, shamans and elders speak of the way of listening. In the Andes, in the Amazon, in the Siberian taigas, one does not call for knowledge. One attunes to it. The medicine of the plants, the voices of ancestors, the songs of the wind, these are revealed when the practitioner is no longer seeking to impose their will. They are found in the liminal spaces, dawn, twilight, dream, trance, and the quiet intervals between one breath and the next. This principle transcends time and geography. It is written in the stones, sung by rivers, whispered by the wind, and encoded in the very structure of consciousness itself. Even modern science, often seen as the realm of rationality and effortful discovery, confirms aspects of this ancient wisdom. Neurobiology shows that creativity, insight, and problem-solving often emerge in moments of rest, in hypnagogic states, or during sleep, when the mind is not actively seeking, when the conscious ego is relaxed. Many inventors and scientists have described sudden breakthroughs occurring in the bathtub, while walking in nature, or during dreams moments when they were not consciously chasing the answer. The subconscious mind, the subtle intelligence of the body, responds to openness and readiness. The more you try to force insight, the more the current resists. The more you relax into alignment, the more the flow carries you forward. And so the paradox of divine revelation is clear. To find what is hidden, stop looking. To receive what is sacred, cease grasping. The secrets of the cosmos, the whispers of your soul, the guidance of unseen intelligences, they come not to those who chase, but to those who attune. The Sufi master Rumi expressed it when he said, "Don't get lost in your pain. Know that one day your pain will become your cure." The wisdom is not in the hunt, but in the patience. The revelation is not a prize to be captured, but a light that shines when your mind is still, your heart is open, and your frequency resonates with the eternal. Your first step is simple, though it feels counterintuitive. Pause. Sit quietly. Breathe. Let the day fall away. Let the compulsions of your mind dissolve. Do not grasp for answers. Allow the questions themselves to settle into a quiet pool, and in that stillness, the answers will begin to rise almost unnoticed. Notice the synchronicities, the fleeting impressions, the gentle nudges that appear when you are no longer forcing the universe to respond to your agenda. The divine does not need to be sought. It waits for the receptacle that has learned patience, humility, and attunement. Remember that the mystics of all traditions, from the deserts of Arabia to the mountains of Tibet, from the temples of Egypt to the forests of North America, all emphasize this single point. Readiness precedes revelation. The seeker who stops is not lazy or passive. They are attentive, they are aligned, they are attuning themselves to a deeper current that cannot be accessed through striving alone. The ancient texts repeatedly caution against impatience, against forcing, against the illusion that more effort equals greater attainment. True insight flows only to those whose inner frequency matches the divine resonance, whose hearts have been emptied of distraction, whose minds have been softened by stillness. And yet, in the modern age, this lesson is harder than ever. Every moment, we are bombarded with stimuli, advice, and the illusion that knowledge is external, that the next article, the next video, the next guru will hold the key. But the esoteric masters warn, no one outside can unlock what lies within. The key is to cultivate the inner conditions, to refine your receptivity, to stop searching outwardly and start listening inwardly. In the silence, the stillness, the surrender, the secrets begin to find you. They arrive as ideas, as symbols, as sudden clarity, as dreams that illuminate unseen pathways, as synchronicities that feel too precise to be coincidence. And they continue to arrive when you persist in the practice of allowing, rather than chasing. This is the essence of initiation. The ancients spoke not of tests imposed by teachers, but of the inner initiation that occurs when you cultivate stillness and alignment. You become the vessel that can contain the secret, and only then does it appear. To chase it before you are ready is to see only shadows. To wait, to attune, to open yourself fully, this is when the light enters. And so, the invitation is simple but profound. Stop searching. Cease the frantic chase. Lower the hands of effort. Still the mind. Open the heart. Attune your frequency. Let the secrets find you as they always have, as they always will. All history, all mysticism, all wisdom converges on this single principle. The seeker who stops seeking becomes the one who knows. As you learn to cease the frantic pursuit, the universe begins to shift in response. The moment you stop grasping, the hidden currents begin to reveal themselves, often in ways that feel subtle at first, a fleeting insight, a sudden memory, a dream that lingers with uncanny clarity. These are not coincidences. In fact, across centuries and continents, mystics have taught that the unseen operates on resonance, not effort. The Tibetan lamas speak of tulku, the recognition of reincarnated teachers, whose awareness is attuned not by search but by alignment. Similarly, the Sufi poets tell of sama, the ecstasy of listening, in which the divine spins through the soul, revealing truths not to the chaser but to the receptive. What these traditions share is an understanding that knowledge flows like water. It cannot be forced, only received. Even in the realm of dreams, the principle holds. The ancient Egyptians, who meticulously recorded the journeys of the soul through the afterlife in texts like the Book of the Dead, taught that sleep is not mere rest but a sacred passage into other dimensions. Thoth, the god of wisdom, scribe of the gods, understood that the soul continues its work while the body lies dormant. Dreams were not distractions, but portals, a space where consciousness could traverse time, meet other beings, and access hidden knowledge. And yet, modern culture largely suppresses this faculty. We are trained to dismiss dreams as random firings of a tired brain, ignoring the profound intelligence that speaks when the conscious mind steps aside. The secret is simple. The moment you stop trying to force understanding in waking life, you open the channels for nocturnal revelations to find you. Shamanic traditions around the world have always emphasized the power of receptivity over pursuit. In the Amazon, for example, ayahuasca ceremonies are not about active questioning, but about surrendering to the medicine, allowing the visions to speak and the teachings to appear. Siberian shamans enter trance states, guided by drumming and ritual, letting spirits, ancestors, and the wisdom of the natural world move through them. The key in all cases is attunement, a careful calibration of frequency. Like tuning a radio to a precise wavelength, the seeker who stops searching can finally receive transmissions that were always present, but inaudible, amidst the noise of striving. The moment of receptivity becomes the moment when divine secrets, long hidden, begin to emerge into consciousness. Even historical figures whose genius reshaped entire fields often describe breakthroughs in terms of stillness, not effort. Nikola Tesla, whose inventions continue to power modern life, spoke of receiving ideas in moments of quiet, often while walking alone or resting. His creative visions were not the product of frantic pursuit. They were discoveries that arrived because his mind was attuned to the underlying harmonies of nature. Hildegard of Bingen, the medieval visionary, similarly received insights in states of contemplative openness, recording visions that combined theology, medicine, and cosmology. The principle is consistent across cultures and eras. When the seeker stops trying to dominate the unknown finds the seeker. The Hermeticists, meanwhile, encoded this principle in symbolic language. As above, so below. They taught not as an intellectual exercise, but as a guide for attunement. The macrocosm mirrors the microcosm, and the internal alignment of the soul determines what can be perceived externally. The philosopher who labors to control the world from outside often misses what is available within. The one who stops, who prepares the vessel, who purifies the mind and heart, receives the hidden streams of knowledge as naturally as a still pond reflects the sky. Even the alchemists of the Renaissance recognized that transformation occurs not through brute effort, but through harmony. The philosopher's stone, they insisted, was discovered not by grasping, but by becoming the appropriate instrument of reception. This principle is echoed in the mystical traditions of the East as well. In yoga, meditation, and the Upanishadic wisdom, the self is already whole. The divine is not elsewhere, it is within. The student who stops searching externally, who quiets the mind and releases attachment, begins to witness that the ultimate reality has never been hidden. It has only required the proper inner conditions to be recognized. In Zen, the koan forces the practitioner to confront the limits of rational pursuit, to let go of striving for an answer, and in that suspension, enlightenment arises. Across all these traditions, one pattern emerges. The seeker who releases is the one who is prepared to receive. Even in the realm of modern science, this principle is mirrored. Neuroscience demonstrates that insight and creativity often emerge in moments of rest, during hypnagogic states, or through dreams. The brain, when not actively searching or striving, reorganizes information, makes connections, and synthesizes knowledge in ways that conscious effort cannot replicate. The innovators, inventors, and thinkers who report breakthroughs often describe them as sudden or unbidden, appearing when the mind was relaxed, open, and receptive. The quiet mind, far from being idle, becomes a conduit for insights and solutions that have been inaccessible during the frenzy of conscious effort. Even within the mystical framework of Kabbalah, the seeker is instructed to prepare the vessel of the soul before revelation. The Sephirot, or emanations of divine energy, do not descend into a mind filled with noise and distraction. They require alignment, purity, and receptivity. The inner work, prayer, reflection, purification of thought is not secondary, it is essential. Divine secrets, the texts emphasize, do not reveal themselves to the frantic or the greedy. They flow only to those who have cultivated readiness. This readiness is not passive. It is an active state of attunement, a conscious choice to align with the currents of the unseen. You can observe this principle even in ordinary life, if you pay attention. Moments of insight often occur when you are not actively searching. In the shower, during a walk, while observing nature, or in quiet reflection. The divine has its own timing, its own rhythms, its own pathways. The searcher, in their frantic activity, may be blind to these moments, while the one who stops and listens begins to recognize them as invitations. These signals, subtle yet powerful, often arrive as synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that guide you toward understanding without the need for force. In dreams, this law of receptivity is magnified. The ancients understood that sleep is a portal into higher dimensions. In Egypt, dream temples were dedicated to the art of receiving divine messages during rest. Initiates were instructed to purify themselves, to enter states of meditation, to set intention, and to allow the dream worlds to communicate truths that could not be accessed while fully awake. Similarly, Tibetan dream yoga trains practitioners to cultivate awareness in sleep, to navigate the bardo with clarity, and to recognize the infinite intelligence that exists beyond the physical senses. The seeker who stops struggling to control the dream is the one who truly learns from it. Even within shamanic traditions, the principle is consistent. The visionary does not chase spirits, they prepare the vessel, attune their frequency, and allow the guidance to emerge. Ayahuasca practitioners surrender to the medicine. Siberian shamans surrender to the trance. The divine or the unseen does not need to be coerced. It seeks those who are ready to receive. Frequency, alignment, and stillness are the keys. The seeker who continues to grasp, to push, to control, finds only resistance. The one who ceases, who harmonizes with the currents, discovers that the currents have been there all along. There is a subtle difference between passivity and receptivity. Passivity is disconnection. It is a state of resignation or ignorance. Receptivity is active presence. It is a deliberate alignment of mind, heart, and spirit to the unseen. The mystics call this preparation. The Hermeticists call it attunement. The Sufis call it annihilation of the ego. Across cultures, the message is the same. Divine secrets do not appear to the frantic, the desperate, or the restless. They reveal themselves to those who have cultivated the inner conditions necessary to perceive them. And so the process becomes a discipline, but not the kind that society praises. It is not measured in hours of labor, in accumulation of credentials, or in feats of mental gymnastics. It is measured in the quieting of the mind, the refinement of vibration, the cultivation of stillness, the preparation of the soul to receive what has always been present. It is a subtle practice, one that demands patience, attention, and willingness to let go of expectation. Yet, paradoxically, it is in this release that the seeker gains the most. Consider the Sufi metaphor of the ocean and the cup. The cup may attempt to scoop water from the ocean, but if it is trembling, grasping, or clattering, it will spill. Only when the cup is steady, balanced, and positioned correctly does it receive the full depth of the ocean. In the same way, the seeker who stops searching, who stabilizes their inner state, begins to contain truths that were always available but inaccessible through force. The ancient masters of all traditions knew this, encoded it into their practices, their teachings, and their texts. Yet the modern world largely overlooks it. Even in modern consciousness research, the principle is reflected. Experiments with lucid dreaming, out-of-body experiences, and altered states of consciousness consistently show that the experiences of subjects are not determined by effort alone but by preparation, relaxation, intention, and alignment. Charles Tart's studies on altered states reveal that when the mind is open and receptive, information emerges that is inaccessible to the active, striving consciousness. The Monroe Institute demonstrates that out-of-body experiences are facilitated not by force, but by tuning the internal field, by matching the frequency of consciousness to subtler dimensions. Across cultures, centuries, and even modern science, the law holds. Stillness attracts revelation. Alignment invites secrets. Surrender opens the doors that striving cannot unlock. Your next step, therefore, is practical as well as mystical. Begin to cultivate receptivity in your daily life. Meditate not to control, but to attune. Observe your thoughts not to manipulate, but to harmonize. Let the distractions fall away. Reduce the noise of the mind, the constant commentary, the incessant doing. Notice the subtle nudges, the coincidences, the fleeting insights. Document your dreams, your intuitions, your unbidden inspirations. These are the footprints of the unseen, the hints of a reality that responds not to effort, but to readiness. You may encounter resistance. The conditioned mind, trained in centuries of striving, will rebel. It will whisper that stopping is laziness, that you are missing opportunities, that the world is harsh and requires constant action. This is the test. The ego fears cessation because in stillness, it loses its grip. The divine, however, is patient. It will wait, and when the seeker persists in attunement, in alignment, in quiet receptivity, the currents begin to flow, and the hidden knowledge, long dormant, begins to appear. This is the alchemy of divine secrets. The seeker becomes the vessel, the inner conditions are purified, the frequency aligned, and the revelation flows. Not through effort, not through force, not through chasing, but through readiness, presence, and resonance. Across history, this is the consistent pattern. The mystics, the sages, the shamans, the alchemists, the hermeticists, the Sufis, the yogis, and even modern scientists all affirm it in their respective languages. The moment you stop searching, the secrets begin to find you. As the night deepens and the body surrenders fully to the embrace of darkness, a quiet shift occurs, a shift that most will never recognize because it has been buried beneath layers of cultural conditioning and disbelief. This moment, delicate yet profound, is where the boundaries of ordinary perception begin to dissolve. Across time, seers, mystics, and initiates of esoteric traditions have described this threshold as the space where true awakening occurs. The Sufi mystics spoke of a nocturnal ascent, a silent flight of the soul through corridors of light, shadow, and revelation, where the self encounters dimensions far beyond the reach of waking logic. The Egyptians, in their meticulous study of the soul, understood sleep as the opening of the gate of Thoth, a passage where consciousness becomes both explorer and scribe, recording, learning, and transforming, even if the waking mind forgets upon dawn. The mystic traditions of India, particularly those preserved in the Upanishads and the Yogic scriptures, detail the journey of prana and subtle consciousness through the koshas, the sheaths of being, illustrating that the body's rest is merely a vehicle for a far more intricate unfolding. Every night, when you close your eyes, you are not retreating. You are stepping into a continuum where life itself is orchestrated in frequencies and vibrations, where every emotion, thought, and unresolved tension serves as a key or a lock. The ancients never separated sleep from spirituality, nor did they dismiss dreams as frivolous. The Hermetic texts, some of the oldest repositories of wisdom, describe sleep as a crucible of consciousness, a sacred laboratory where the soul's faculties are honed. Dreams were not interpreted merely as narratives. They were treated as messages from the divine, encoded in symbols that spoke directly to the inner self. When the Greeks consulted oracles and recorded omens, they paid attention not only to waking signs, but to the dreams of their most attuned citizens. The Delphic priestesses, enveloped in the sacred vapors of the temple, experienced visions that guided kings and shaped civilizations. Across cultures, the reverence for the nocturnal journey is undeniable. It is a universal acknowledgement that the boundaries of reality are far more porous than the waking mind allows. Yet in modern times, this reverence has been systematically stripped away. Children are taught that dreams are nonsense, distractions, or the after effects of a tired brain. Adults are trained to dismiss intuitive flashes and nocturnal guidance as coincidence. The subtle science of vibration, intention, and frequency, a science the ancients understood and cultivated, is largely ignored. And in this ignorance lies the loss of a vast, uncharted dimension of human capability. The act of going to sleep, when approached without awareness, can be likened to wandering into a dense forest without a map. Fear, unprocessed trauma, and unresolved emotional patterns anchor the consciousness into lower vibrational states, pulling it toward chaotic or distressing experiences. Nightmares, far from being meaningless, are the markers of these inner landscapes. They are the soul's way of signaling areas that demand attention, integration, or transformation. Consider the countless reports across cultures of recurring symbols in dreams. Water, fire, serpents, descending staircases, flying or being pursued. These motifs are not random. They are archetypal frequencies, vibrations embedded in the collective unconscious, echoing through time and space, carrying messages that transcend individual experience. Carl Jung, in his study of the psyche, documented the profound consistency of these archetypes, noting that they represent fundamental aspects of human consciousness. The Egyptians encoded many of these symbols in hieroglyphs, associating them with cosmic principles, divine law, and the hidden movements of the soul. To ignore these signs is to ignore the very fabric of the self, the blueprint through which evolution manifests. Yet, for those who approach sleep with intention, the experience becomes radically different. When the consciousness is prepared, when the mind is cleared of trivial clutter, when the heart carries gratitude, curiosity, and openness, the nocturnal voyage turns into a guided expedition. Initiates in the temples of ancient Egypt would purify themselves before sleep, not as a ritualistic display, but as an energetic alignment. Oils, chants, and visualizations were used to attune the body, mind, and soul to higher vibrational states, ensuring that the night's journeys were constructive rather than chaotic. In Tibet, practitioners of dream yoga cultivated mindfulness and awareness throughout the day precisely so that the night could be a time of conscious exploration. The purpose was never entertainment or escapism. It was the cultivation of mastery over one's inner world. The subtle mechanics of this process are astonishingly precise. Every thought, every emotion, every tiny residue of fear or hope acts as a signal, setting the coordinates for the soul's nocturnal travels. The body may rest, but consciousness moves with intricate responsiveness, a dance choreographed by intention and the quality of inner vibration. In this state, the mind begins to slip into what modern researchers term the astral or non-local domain, but the ancients understood it intuitively as a real, structured dimension layered above, around, and within the waking world. Here, one may encounter beings of light, guides, ancestors, and sometimes even fragments of one's own psyche, externalized in symbolic form. These encounters are often encoded with lessons and insights too profound to be understood in the ordinary linear frameworks of waking thought. The ancient Egyptians, in the inscriptions of the Book of the Dead, described the soul navigating these realms, passing through gates and thresholds, encountering judges, teachers, and symbols, each interaction a test, a lesson, a reflection of inner preparedness. Similarly, the mystics of Sufism describe the nocturnal ascension as a journey through concentric spheres, each revealing aspects of the self and the divine, demanding discernment, courage, and clarity of heart. The Hermetic maxim, "As above, so below," finds its ultimate proof in these journeys. The outer world reflects the inner state, and the inner state shapes the outer experience in return. One of the most remarkable phenomena within these nocturnal landscapes is the encounter with shared consciousness. Across cultures, from indigenous shamans to modern practitioners of lucid dreaming, there are repeated accounts of individuals meeting within the dream state, sharing experiences, visions, or symbols with precision that defies statistical probability. In some cases, these are meetings with loved ones who have passed. In others, guidance comes from entities or teachers whose presence defies physical explanation. Modern consciousness research, including experiments conducted by Dr. Stanley Krippner, documents instances where a sender and a receiver experience the same imagery without prior coordination. These shared dreams are not anomalies. They are a demonstration of the underlying non-local nature of consciousness. The vibrations we carry, the intentions we set, the clarity of our inner field, all serve as frequencies that broadcast into this multi-dimensional reality. This is why the preparation for sleep, the alignment of heart, mind, and soul, is not trivial. It is calibration for interaction with realms that respond directly to your inner resonance. The interplay between intention and vibration extends even to the perception of time. Linear chronology, the strict adherence to past, present, and future, is a construct of waking life. Within the nocturnal and astral realms, time becomes malleable, a spiral, a field in which probabilities coexist simultaneously. Ancient Hermetic texts, and later mystical schools, describe the soul's ability to navigate this temporal fluidity, glimpsing events that have yet to manifest in physical reality, or revisiting moments long past. Dreams that foreshadow real-world occurrences, sometimes dismissed as coincidence, are often the conscious mind tapping into this non-linear field. The Egyptians referred to this as remembrance, a faculty of the soul to perceive the eternal now in its multiple expressions. To cultivate the ability to perceive these signals requires discipline, awareness, and refinement of inner frequency. Without these, the soul drifts into unconscious random projections that obscure the underlying guidance. Even the so-called nightmares play a pivotal role. They are often the misunderstood signals of unresolved energy, trauma, or internal discord. They confront you with fragments of self you have avoided integrating, emotions you have repressed, or fears you have projected outward. The chase, the darkness, the shadowed figures, they are mirrors. Diagnostic tools revealing the frequencies you carry and the aspects of consciousness that remain untended. In ancient Egyptian initiation practices, these encounters were not feared. They were engaged with intentionally. The initiate learned to face the shadow, to recognize the reflection, and to transmute it through awareness and integration. In doing so, the lower vibrational energies of the psyche are not merely suppressed, they are understood, balanced, and elevated. Lucid dreamers report similar phenomena. Confronting a nightmare with intention transforms the experience, often revealing guidance, hidden truths, or pathways previously obscured. This is the essence of dream alchemy, turning lead into gold, chaos into insight, shadow into light. Yet, even beyond these teachings, sleep serves a deeper purpose. It is the medium through which consciousness trains itself in multidimensional awareness. Just as the physical body develops strength through exercise, the mind and soul develop clarity, insight, and vibrational sensitivity through the conscious navigation of sleep. Every encounter, every symbol, every fleeting vision acts as feedback, a subtle instruction, or a recalibration. The ancients codified this understanding, embedding techniques, visualizations, and prayers to ensure that consciousness remained attuned, that the nightly journeys were constructive, purposeful, and transformative. The Sufi tradition emphasizes the quieting of the ego, the stilling of distraction, and the cultivation of a receptive heart, so that the soul may engage with realities beyond ordinary perception. Similarly, Tibetan Dream Yoga instructs practitioners to maintain mindfulness continuously, even as the body lies at rest, to cultivate lucidity, discernment, and ethical alignment within the dream state. Intentional sleep is not passive. It is an act of co-creation. It is an invitation to engage with the infinite, to commune with intelligence beyond the senses, and to access knowledge too vast for waking comprehension. Every thought before sleep, every image entertained, every feeling carried, becomes a signal, a coordinate, a tuning fork that calibrates the journey. The quality of these inner vibrations dictates the precision, clarity, and expansiveness of the nocturnal voyage. As such, cultivating peace, love, gratitude, and clarity before sleep is not mere spiritual adornment. It is essential training for navigating the astral, temporal, and vibrational realms with intention and mastery. Ancient temples and mystery schools treated this seriously because they understood that mastery over sleep was mastery over consciousness itself, a mastery that enabled the soul to remember, to evolve, and to interact with the cosmos beyond the limitations of the physical shell. Even in the simplest moments, when the body lies in darkness and the mind begins to soften, these principles operate. The hypnagogic state, that liminal space between wakefulness and sleep, is the doorway, the interface, the fertile ground where intention becomes vibration and vibration becomes trajectory. It is here, in this almost invisible fleeting moment, that the foundation for the night's journey is laid. The subconscious receives without filter, without judgment, without debate. Every thought, every word, every feeling resonates across the internal field and sets the tone for the nocturnal experience. Modern practitioners of lucid dreaming, mindfulness, and energy work recognize this implicitly. The mind is a navigator, the heart a compass, and the body a vessel. And when these elements are aligned, the journeys become extraordinary. As consciousness traverses these realms, it learns, records, and integrates. Every encounter with archetypal symbols, luminous beings, or shadowed landscapes is encoded into the psyche as experience, as wisdom, and often as subtle guidance that manifests in waking life. Dreams are not ephemeral distractions. They are data streams, messages from dimensions and intelligences that operate beyond conventional perception. The Egyptian Book of Traversing the Night is a testament to this understanding, a guide for the soul navigating thresholds, gates, and challenges. Hermetic teachings echo the same principle. The nocturnal journey is an active dialogue between the soul and the cosmos, a negotiation that refines, illuminates, and aligns the individual with universal law. Every recurring dream, every vivid vision, every encounter that leaves a lingering emotional imprint is purposeful, instructive, and preparatory. Ultimately, mastery over sleep is mastery over consciousness itself. When you learn to treat sleep as a sacred practice, as a laboratory for the soul, as a journey guided by intention and resonance, you begin to reclaim a power systematically denied by societal conditioning. You awaken not only to the dimensions of the dream, but to the deeper truths of yourself. You navigate fear, integrate shadow, access guidance, and touch the infinite. Time ceases to be a cage. Vibration becomes a compass, and consciousness expands beyond the limitations of the waking self. The nocturnal voyage is not optional, it is essential. Every night is a classroom, every dream a lesson, every shadow a teacher. And in this understanding, sleep transforms from a passive recovery into an active evolution. It becomes a bridge to wisdom, a conduit for insight, and a training ground for the soul's awakening. In these nights of intentional sleep, the boundaries between self and cosmos blur. The waking and dreaming merge. The lessons of the lower planes integrate with the revelations of the higher planes. Guidance, insight, and clarity emerge with a subtle yet undeniable authority. The practices of preparation, alignment, intention, and vibrational awareness are no longer ritual. They are the mechanics of awakening, the tools of mastery, and the keys to accessing the multidimensional potential of consciousness. And as this integration deepens, waking life itself transforms. Synchronicities, intuition, and meaningful coincidences become commonplace, not because the world has changed, but because your perception has aligned with the underlying patterns of reality. You no longer need to chase understanding, it finds you, as naturally as the night finds the dawn. The journey is continuous, unbroken, and ever-expanding. Sleep, when reclaimed as sacred practice, is no longer a passive act, but a deliberate orchestration of consciousness. Every night, every dream, every encounter becomes a stepping stone, a lesson, a calibration, a revelation. The ancients encoded this knowledge not in stories alone, but in the practices, symbols, and rituals that have survived, waiting for those willing to remember. The gates of the night, the guidance of Thoth, the echoes of Sufi wisdom, the precision of Hermetic law, the clarity of Tibetan dream yoga, they all converge to teach one unalterable truth. The power to navigate, to awaken, and to integrate lies within you. The nocturnal voyage is not merely a dream, it is a return to the self, to the cosmos, and to the infinite possibility of consciousness itself. And so, when you close your eyes tonight, approach the darkness with reverence. Recognize that this is not the end of your awareness, but the threshold of a vast, intricate, luminous universe. Carry intention as a torch, vibration as a compass, and openness as a shield. Trust that the symbols, encounters, and visions are neither random nor trivial. They are coded guidance, invitations to evolve, and reflections of the infinite within you. Sleep is not surrender, it is mastery. Dreams are not distractions, they are instructions. And in this reclamation of nocturnal intelligence, you awaken not just from sleep, but from the illusions of limitation itself, stepping into a reality where the divine secrets that have always existed can finally, unmistakably, find you. If this message resonates, don't let it fade with the dawn. Set your intention tonight, honor your sleep as sacred, and allow your dreams to guide you. For deeper insights, practices, and teachings that connect you to these hidden realms, sign up for our free newsletter, Insights Academy, and receive a complimentary copy of the Cybelian, a foundational text of Hermetic wisdom. Click the link below. Your journey doesn't have to wait.